and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
In the tail end, 1967, and with the winter cooling off the heat from the summer race rides, a strong, determined high school graduate, who would later be known as the Pie Lady, received news that she and her new husband will be expecting at the tender age of 17. On August 24, 1968, Sherry and James gave birth to their first son. At a time when moments are supposed to be precious and memorable, for Sherry, it wasn't. For the first 7 months of her son's life, it was toxic, filled with arguments and abuse. The last straw was when Sherry was holding little James while arguing with her husband. In the result, Sherry was shot while holding her son James Toney. After recovering, she was determined to further her dreams and education. But like most cases, dreams come with sacrifices. While his mom was occupied with education, the first signs of trouble for young James began before grade school. Fighting and anger issues became a habit for James, usually ending in him being sent home to his grandma. By the age of 8, Toney and his mother were moved to Ann Arbor, where she transferred to Michigan University. By age 11, Toney had been in so many fights, his mom was forced to take him to a boxing gym and told him if he wants to fight, do it in a boxing ring. There began James Lights Out Toney's boxing career. With one foot in the streets and the other in sports throughout his teenage years, and with a promising career in football, boxing was just a hobby. James was more focused on throwing the football or slinging rocks with his crew. One incident, he accidentally left his stash at the house, and while playing ball in the park, some police rolled up on him and began to search him. His friend was the unlucky one, being hauled off to jail for possession. James' football dreams were cut short by an ankle injury that turned his focus strictly to boxing. Before turning pro at the age of 18, James had an amateur record of 33 wins, 32 by knockout, and only 2 losses. At the beginning of his career, he was managed by a local Detroit man by the name of Johnny Smith, aka Ace, who was a street hustler in '88. Smith ended up being gunned down outside of his office by 2 men with automatic weapons as James watched. This being the second signs for James to tighten up. On October 26, 1988, James debuted against Stephen Lee, stopping him in the second round. By the beginning of '89, James had 4 more fights, winning them all. Still faced with anger issues, he put his fist through a window, putting his hands and future at risk. Despite that, by the end of '89, he would end the year with a total of 12 fights. By 1991, he was 26-0-1 and on his way to face Michael Nunn for the IBF and lineal middleweight championship of the world. Going into the fight, Michael Nunn was 36-0, and his opponent's combined win percentage was 77%. The fight took place Friday, May 10, 1991, at the John O'Donnell Stadium in Davenport, Iowa. Sanctioned by Iowa's Athletic Commission and promoted by Bob Arum and Top Rank Promotions. It was later reported that Bob offered Toney $50,000 for the fight, and if he won, a 3-fight contract worth $1 million was waiting on him. And Toney told his manager, "Take the fight. I will beat that son of a bitch." Nunn was considered as one of the top pound-for-pound fighters by most boxing experts at the time, and he was a heavy favorite. Going into the fight, you could tell in the ring walk, that this was going to be a banger. From the first round, both fighters let their hands go. You could tell who the stronger fighter was in the exchange. But going through the round, by the posture and bravado, none looked to be the favorite in the fight. But once the punches was thrown and landed, it was a different story. In the 10th round, Toney seemed to catch up to the moving none. Had him against the ropes and hurt him a few times.
We're running out of rounds. We got to dog this man. We got to go out there and fight him.
But in the 11th round, the left hook was the beginning of the end for Michael Nunn. Because once he got up, he wasn't the same. Toney was landing a barrage of punches on him and even had him on the ropes, off balance. The referee looked like he was gonna step in and wave it off, and Toney hit him with that right hand to put him down to make sure it was over. Nunn's corner came in and picked him up off the floor, and it was official. James Toney was the new IBF middleweight champion of the world.
And an early Mother's Day gift from my mother, Sherry Toney, who helped me and supported me so much throughout my young career.
After beating Michael Nunn and becoming IBF middleweight champion of the world and fighter of the year by Ring Magazine, Toney will go on to defend his title 5 times before struggling to maintain weight, often fighting a whole weight class above while holding the belt at the middleweight division.
I can't make the weight, it's hard. You know, if I just said to hell with it, I'm not fighting 160 no more. I don't care what nobody's saying.
Most critics became skeptical of James and doubted how good he really was, questioning both his power and passion.
Like a days ago, not in control, no, I be reading all that. The reason why I do that is because I don't kiss their ass.
James will score a draw against Mike McCollum, but before stepping up to 168, he will hash out the draw with a majority decision in the rematch on August 29, 1992. He would then have one tune-up before facing Iran the Blade Barkley for the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. This being a big test and an experienced opponent. Toney shined. From start to finish, he had it his way like Burger King. Before the 9th round, doctors wanted to stop the fight due to the swelling and bleeding on Barkley. Now, although Toney knocked Barkley's mouthpiece out and into the 3rd row, Barkley went out for one more round, suffering even more punishment and swelling to the face. By the time the bell rang, the doctors and corner were already jumping in the ring, letting the ref know it was over. Barkley was in denial, but his face told the tale, looking like Sloth from the Goonies, making James Toney the new IBF Super Middleweight Champion of the world. But Toney wasn't done there. With his ear to the critics, he was on a mission to prove all doubters wrong.
I never want to be accused of ducking anybody. Fight Roy Jones, that's definitely I want to fight him, because he ain't but a bunch of hype.
And that set him up for a head-on collision with Roy Jones Jr. Still struggling with weight, he went into his next 5 fights overweight and finally made weight to defend his title versus Tony Thornton and won by unanimous decision. Toney will finish the year with 7 fights, defending his title only once due to weight issues. By '94, nothing changed. Toney ran through 4 opponents before the showdown with Roy Jones. The fight took place November 18, 1994 at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada.
The night of the fight, man, the place was packed and the atmosphere was electric. Roy was dressed to impress with the white tuxedo coat and had plenty of moxie and showmanship for the crowd. Toney was dressed in all black with the Scully, looking like the trap star supreme, straight killer. From the opening bell, Roy's lead left hook, his slickness, and his footwork was the story of the night. By the 3rd round, there was already evidence that Roy was getting into James's head, pacing and leading. Roy would do something, and not to be outdone, James would try to do the same thing. Both of them trying to get an edge, get the crowd behind them. Roy had a habit of going to the well a little bit too often. From time to time, Toney would make him pay for it. Man, Roy's hand speed and combination punching was like a pop quiz on the first day of school. James Toney didn't have any of the answers. Roy ended up shining on Toney on his way to a unanimous decision, becoming the new IBF super middleweight world champion.
The ultimate measure of man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.